Well, I'm glad there's still a few people around, so that's nice. I think some people are still outside. It's really nice to be back in Poland. I haven't spoken in Poland for several years, but Poland's been good to me. And going back to the good old days with Darren and Romek and the beginning of the PwC Center in Krakow, I've spent quite a bit of time in Poland. But today, I've been asked to speak about the future, to think about the technology, and to talk a little bit about how technology changes business models, how it changes the way we work, and what we should all expect. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the future of work as well, which is a fairly interesting topic. I can't guarantee it's going to be the best speech in the world, but I can guarantee one thing, that you've never seen a speech with a longer title than this one. Thanks, Tom. I run a company called Emergence Partners. We're a technology advisory firm. Prior to that, I spent most of my career in outsourcing, GBS, and technology advisory. And now I'm running this firm. And it's quite interesting because things are really changing at pace. And I think, as I was thinking about today and coming along today, I was thinking, well, of course, the obvious thing to do is to type that really long title into ChatGPT and see what it comes out with. So here we go. Ladies and gentlemen. No. I'm not going to do that. That would be really cruel for all of you because, first of all, it would be very boring. Secondly, it would be fairly content bland. Yeah, I think it would be pretty dry. And I hope I can do a better job than ChatGPT at this. We will talk about it later, though, because this is a fantastic example of a disruptive technology. It isn't magic. We all think AI is magic. It's not magic, but it is a disruptive technology. And I think what's really interesting about technology is that if we get confused about technology today and how fast it's growing, remember one thing. I need to press the button. So technology is advancing faster now than it has ever done before. And whilst we've seen huge advances in technology, I think the really harrowing fact is it's now going slower than it ever will again. And I think if we're confused about new technologies coming into our lives and disrupting us now, then get used to it because this is going to continue to happen. And it's going to be disruptive, and we're going to see some interesting changes in the way that we work or don't work, and we've got a lot ahead of us to come. So the reason this is true is because technology tends to follow an exponential growth curve. And the most famous exponential growth curve is, anyone? Come on, you guys. Moore's law. Oh, very good. So Moore's law said that the number of transistors that you can get on a silicon chip will double every year or so. It wasn't very precise, actually, but it is that kind of progression that we're seeing, not just in silicon chip technology, but just think about every technology that you can imagine. However, there are technologies that somehow seem to drag along really slowly and never really emerge fast enough. And I'm going to explain a little bit about that and some of the theory around why that is. But you know, I was born in the mid-'60s, and I was promised that I would have a flying car, that I would go to the moon on holiday, that I would have a hoverboard. And none of those things actually exist today. But they're getting close. You might also say that by now we might have expected to have an autonomous vehicle driving around in Warsaw. Well, probably not in Warsaw. But it's not there yet, is it? But we've been hearing about it for a long time. And the reason is this. The exponential development starts really slow. And human mindset is linear. So we expect things to grow and to increase and grow and develop, whatever, at a fairly steady pace. But the fact is, technology develops in an exponential pace. And there's these things called the 6 Ds. So the first thing is, as we talk about technology, we're talking about digital technology. Not just digital, but there is a digitization of some kind in the technology we're talking about. But there's this phase called the deceptive phase. And all those things that haven't quite come out yet are sitting in that deceptive phase. So it is things like the autonomous vehicle. It is, you know, until recently, in fact, it's been the large language engine. So like ChatGPT. Those things have been about for years. We've been talking about what OpenAI has been doing for some years, but only now is it emerging. And of course, when it emerges, it gets us into this next phase of disruption. And disruption is probably the most exciting and interesting phase, but it's not the last phase. And what happens and what tends to happen with technology, and think about disruptive, by the way, it's things like, Uber completely disrupting the taxi industry, ChatGPT really upsetting Google's share price. All these kinds of things that we imagine as being, really groundbreaking. They are disruptive. They change markets. They make the way that we do things very, very different. Think about the music industry and Spotify. Think about all the things that are happening around digital photography. These were disruptive. They completely changed industries. Companies died and went away. New companies were born. New industries were born as a result. But what comes next is this dematerialization. So this is the classic thing. I mean, I remember buying CDs and DVDs. Those things have gone away. They've disappeared. And then what happens is demonetization. Things get cheaper over time. Technology gets cheaper. And I'm going to come on in a minute and talk about the technologies we might use in a business services environment. But things get cheap. So think about, Spotify. You can access 1 million songs today on Spotify for a month for less than it cost to buy one CD 15 years ago. So I think they were about £15 at one point in the UK. And then what happens at the end is this democratization. I think you spoke a bit about democratization in your company, but here it's things like what happens to the access to various technologies, things that you could never have afforded before. Think about the compute power you can access on Amazon Web Services. You couldn't have afforded that 10 years ago. You could never have had the size of computer or access to the kind of data or the kind of AI models that exist today. You couldn't have afforded them. Think about online training. In fact, I was talking to a guy the other day. I was in Vietnam. I'll tell you in the bar why I was in Vietnam. But I was talking to this guy in a factory where they make boats, and he was sitting there with his iPad. And on his iPad, he was like fiddling away at lunchtime, saying, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm doing." This guy was a mechanic or painter or something. He said, "I'm learning to be a computer programmer." Okay, so he was doing a course on Khan, the online training platform, and he's sitting there doing a course in computer programming. This guy couldn't afford to go on a course or go take a degree or whatever. He was sitting there in the factory doing it. That's what democratization is all about. And that's going to impact and continue to impact us as we go forward. So let's look at intelligent automation. It's one of my favorite topics. May not be all of your favorite topics. But let's look at some of the different technologies. And we could argue where these technologies exist on this curve, where they are today. We could spend the rest of the day talking about that, but Tom won't let us do that. So cloud is definitely up there, just the compute power of cloud, the low cost of it. I've got IDP, intelligent document processing. I mean, OCR's been around since the 50s. And thank God. I mean, can you imagine what a lot of our jobs would be like today if we didn't have the ability to digitize documents? We've got APIs up there. I mean, APIs have been around, for donkey's years as well, but now they're the platforms that actually help you build them, that actually will build them for you, that will connect your technologies together. How much easier is life today because we've got these things? So these are kind of the ones that are more mature. I would say that RPA probably was at one point a disruptive technology. I think we've probably we tend to forget about technologies as they go up this curve, strangely. I was discussing with someone earlier today how much AI you carry around on your phone in your pocket, but you just don't think about it that way. The language engine that's in your iPhone, the camera, the facial recognition, the fingerprint, all that stuff is what we used to call AI before it got on your phone, and now we just call it an iPhone. So, life's quite different. What else we got up here? I think productivity mining is what I like to call what Celonis does. I use a different product sometimes, but the idea here is productivity mining is the concept of looking for opportunities to improve productivity using technology. And then if we put some of the others, one of the ones I think things are still struggling to emerge that are down in this sort of deceptive phase. I've got biometrics. I mean, it is being used extensively, but not really in the business world. It's being used, mostly maybe around banking, maybe around ID and security. As you go through airports, it's used extensively. IT here is immersive technology. AR and VR, it's there, it's coming. It's going to be amazing when it does, but it's not quite here yet, and it's not really being used extensively at this point. It's great for games. I have an Oculus at home, and I absolutely love it, but I can't quite think how I would take it to work and use it at work at the moment. Not quite there yet, but coming. And I think digital twin is going to be a fascinating concept. So digital twin is the concept of creating digital versions of things that you can manipulate and change just like they were real. Whether it's a machinery, whether it's a human body, where you can simulate surgery. So all these things I think are going to be fascinating when they come. And then they really will be earth-shattering and interesting. But what's really interesting about these technologies, and you could probably name several other technologies that I haven't got up there, and we could continue that debate, but they're all going to go on this curve. So look at RPA, for example. It's going up the curve. It's getting cheaper. There are free versions of RPA technology. You can get it with your Microsoft license now. It's just going to get cheaper and more pervasive, easier to access, more democratized, and it's going to be I think continue that curve of transformation for all of us. And so many people here talk about having done I've spoken to several people who say, yeah, we did RPA, we tried it a couple of times, didn't work, moved on. Okay, so yeah, I get it. It doesn't, oops. Am I alive still? Yeah. So I think, but what's interesting for me is not so much the technologies themselves, but there's three things I'm going to touch on. The first thing is ecosystems, and these guys are a perfect example of ecosystem where the power of some of these technologies and how they work is going to come through the way you use them with other tools. The second one is convergence, and I'll come on to that in a minute because I think it's even more exciting. And then I'm going to touch slightly on the biometric. These three areas I think are going to be quite important for all of us moving forward. So the first thing is ecosystem. So this is an example of an ecosystem. This is one that I created, so this is a good one. So we've taken a number of different, I would say, best-in-class, smaller software providers, and we said to them, okay, let's go and talk to some clients and see what good looks like. What does good look like? And so this is very sort of ground up from clients. It was a banking client. And these 6 software companies have all been working together to work out what the best bits of their tech is and have managed to integrate it into a model that can operate across any intelligent automation opportunity. And it's quite interesting. I won't go through it because I could spend another half a day on that. But if you are interested, let me know. So I think convergence is actually quite interesting. So it's where these technologies converge that things get quite powerful. So think about, for example, immersive technology and machine learning. So this is your sort of, I don't know, digital showroom, or your, or it could be a fashion advice, so based on, how successful people have been in the past of doing something, we can learn about that, and we can use immersive technology, maybe a headset, so that you could understand what you might look like in that environment. Digital twin, this is where you could practice surgery on an individual, or practice maintaining a machine that doesn't actually exist, but you've designed it in concept, and you could actually understand how you might manage that and maintain it. So these technologies are quite interesting when you start to converge them. And then over here, I mean, I just made that one up, but what if you had a large language engine like ChatGPT, you gave it all of the data that you had in your organization around, I don't know, your processes, or your tax structure, or your audit information, and you could have a conversation around how it can automate stuff, and it could do that for you. It could do the automation based on the conversation you had, or it would ask the right questions, or it would gather all the data. Maybe you'd link it into Celonis, and it could collect all the actual use case data as well. That could be quite powerful. But I'm imagining it, but it's not that unreasonable, is it, that could be a future potential, especially as things start going up that curve. Technology, compute power is getting stronger, availability of cloud and other technologies is getting stronger. So I think this is where business models really start to get disrupted. And then one more thing, biometrics. I mean, I love this one. Got my age absolutely right. 58. Attractive? No. Big nose? Yes. So, we're teaching computers to understand how we as humans behave. We're teaching them facial expressions. We're teaching them the noises that we make as humans. And why are we doing that? It's because we as humans are trying to create machines that can behave like us and be smart like us. Whether that's a good thing or not is to be debated. But the good thing is that when your computer sees this guy, he's going to know that he's scared. He's really scared. So your computer will know that and recognize that face. And this is interesting, but I think it's going to be really interesting in customer service as we think about the way that computers will have conversations with us. Large chat engine running a call center could do that very, very effectively, given all of the data in the organization. Chat engines, so one thing to think about things like ChatGPT, it's a chat engine. You give it data and it can have a conversation with you. If the data's not right, it's more likely to get the grammar right than the content, frankly, because it's designed as a discussion language engine. So I'm going to change tack a little bit here. We're going to talk about, I think, something controversial. I'm either the fox here amongst the hounds or the fox amongst the chickens. I'm not quite sure which it is. But talking about competitive pressure, and this is what is, I think, one of the things that we've got to think about. Competitive pressure in industry today. All of the companies we work for in this room, every single one is under competitive pressure of one kind or another. Competitive pressure drives fear. It drives fear in the board. The board likes to hand that fear down by delegating fear, likes to give the GBS leader something to worry about. But what happens with that is this obsession with efficiency. When you have an obsession with efficiency, you really focus, and it's human nature that when you're scared about something, you have a very narrow focus. You don't think, you don't look around, you tend to focus on one thing. And the thing that we tend to focus on is actually saying to people, well, look, your role is this very tightly defined role. You can only do something the way that you've done it, the way you're being told to do it. There's only one way to do this task. And when you have something that there's only one way to do the task, you have created a perfect automation case. So the problem with automation cases is that you tend then to lose people. And then you have this circle of fear and destruction that goes on in the GBS world. This is what you do. You eliminate people and you focus on efficiency, and it's a big circular thing. Now, I know I've made my whole career in this industry, so it's nothing. But we call this scalable efficiency. And I think it's the model that most organizations focus most of their time on. The really great thing today has been how everyone that has spoken about the importance of people in the process. And I think that we as human beings are actually incredibly powerful. We have imagination, we have creativity, we have social intelligence, we have emotional intelligence. And that's what makes us really, really special. And we all have it, actually. And if you don't believe me, let's go down to a playground and you look at 5 or 6-year-olds. They're all incredibly creative. They all have amazing imagination. They all have social intelligence, and they all have emotional intelligence. But then what happens to them? They go to school, okay? They get educated. Then they get a job. And the job says, this is the process, this is the procedure you follow. And all of a sudden, the things that they get rewarded for are not the things that they're really, really good at. So humans, I'm a fan of humans. And in fact, the mission of our company, Emergence, is to make the world a better place to live and to work through the thoughtful adoption of technology. So I think this is something where we need to be very careful and very balanced in the way that we think about people in the organization. So there's another model. There's another model that looks a bit like this. Yes, there's fear because everybody in the business world needs to create wealth for their shareholders, and wants to be a good employer, but at the end of the day, they have to create wealth. But maybe this time what we should be looking at is the concept of curiosity. What do we ask our people to do? Curiosity drives an obsession with exploration. How could we do something better? How could we improve what we are doing? And it's not a case of continuous improvement or retraining people to do another task. This is about thinking about the things in the organization that are problems and opportunities that are unforeseen. You didn't predict them. This is about solving the problems that you didn't predict. And I think the obsession with this is where value creation comes from. You didn't create Twitter or Google by being efficient and driving efficiency. It was created by people that had amazing ideas or great visions about what they wanted to create. You can also, by the way, destroy an organization by getting rid of those people. Just think about Twitter. I mean, I think, is Twitter creating value today or more value? I don't know. Anyway, oh, by the way, I call this scalable learning. And I think the real answer here is that there's a balance, right? It's not, you can't be all about scalable learning and not about efficiency. But I think there's a model that all of us as GBS leaders can take back to our organizations, is that actually scalable learning is about this obsession with curiosity and about giving people the opportunity, making the investments in the organization that enable ideas and the solutions to unforeseen problems and opportunities, and giving them the infrastructure, the time, and the ability to bring those to the business so they can create. You do it across the business. And there's been many examples of where this has been successful. And I think the oldest and best known example is probably the Kaizen approach, where in Toyota, where the guy on the shop floor could stop production if he thought there was a problem that had not been foreseen, or there was an opportunity to improve something that had not been foreseen, and his team would come around and they'd discuss it and they'd talk about it. So this scalable efficiency and scalable learning, it gives an opportunity to drive better performance and maybe more creative ways of improving things. And I think that's the real key to this. And that's everything I had to say. So if there's any questions, thank you very much.
Questions, comments? Yes.
Thank you very much. So you were talking about humans. I like that connection from the technology. It doesn't come without people. Did you hear about the concept of citizen development? And I think you touched on that one when you were saying that I went to Vietnam and this guy was sitting and, getting this learning. So is that something that we should support our people, in that direction as well as something that you see, maybe to create like this exponential growth with the technology and helping your people to become technology more savvy, to feel more comfortable with the technology?
I think the answer to that is yes, with some caution. So citizen development is really the concept that you don't need to develop technology, by knowing the code and how to write a computer program. I love the idea of enabling teams to come together and to create and to look at the problems that they get, the way they can improve things using technology. Citizen development tools are a great way to very quickly test something, get it operating, making it work. The danger, of course, is that you can cause chaos. But I think there is that, you need that little bit of being on the edge of chaos and efficiency to drive change. If you're not going to change something, then don't ask the question. So the real key, I think, to scalable learning is asking the right questions. We as managers should be better at asking questions and spend less time telling. And that's the real difference about scalable learning.
Question here?
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the session. You've talked about, how innovative and technological advancements are going to come, interesting times ahead. But some of these technologies are not mature or, they've not emerged as yet. So what challenges do you face telling your customers, it's not mature yet, but then, try this out or something like that?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't recommend necessarily adopting something that hasn't matured to a certain extent. But I think there's no harm in looking ahead at what's the art of the future, art of the possible is going to be. And I think that's kind of where you are when you're looking at those kind of in the deceptive phase. I mean, would you put money down on on a self-driving car today? Would you know which one to buy? So no, I mean, you can say, well, look, I think this is coming. And there are businesses that are looking at the business model of self-driving cars. There are businesses today being created on flying cars, on taxi services between rooftops in New York. So there are people, entrepreneurs out there looking in that well of sort of undeveloped technologies. That's really the space of the entrepreneur. And yeah, I think it's a very interesting place to work. If you're interested in technology, then I think that could be a fascinating place to be. Would I invest? Would my clients want to invest in that? I think I'd struggle to credibly persuade them it was a good idea.
I wonder, what do you hear from your clients, let's say, when you present this model, actually in today's economy? Because there's like a big question about, about the situation today and what to focus on and select the right priorities.
Well, in the efficiency model, the obsession with efficiency, there's no room for innovation. What there's room for is saving cost. And it drives you to automation. So I would question what's more risky. Is it more risky to do nothing or to do something? So I think doing something is about innovating, and innovating through using those fantastic capabilities that humans have to imagine, to create, to think about different futures. So I would say it's risky not to do that. I'd say it's more risky not to do that. That would be my answer.
Okay, anyone gets the honor of the last question of the whole day and yesterday? No one wants to take that very serious, heavy. It's a heavy burden to carry, isn't it? Okay, thank you very much. It was really good, very, very interesting. Thank you very much, David. Okay.